sing like a robot. I mean, a bird.
I wonder, are any of the birds going to sue?
What about Twitter? Do they own any of it?
Not anymore.
You guys remember a few months ago, all over the news was this room temperature superconductor. And everyone was saying it's probably fake. Well, guess what? 8 of the 11 original authors requested that they retract.
Do we know if the original author is going on all kinds of podcasts saying that the Nobel Prize has been taken away from them?
I think the one thing we did learn is you can't make a superconductor this way.
Hey, how the tech are you? I am HK, and today my first story is sing like a robot. I mean, a bird. Scientists produced a new AI model that produces more examples of rare birds' songs. Classification models learn to tell between them. That was a lot of information very quickly. So let me try and break this down. There is a training set of data that includes species of birds and examples of their song. Scientists are training models to learn to classify a species of bird based on a recording of its song. The problem with this data set is that common species are way overrepresented in the training. And when you have something that's way overrepresented in training data, generally produces a bad result in the trained model once you're inferring using that model. So this new model that scientists have developed is a generative model that will produce additional audio samples, rare birds' song. So you feed it several examples of a rare bird's song, and it will produce additional examples to give to the model that you're training to differentiate between them. And the way this actually works is very interesting. What they do is they turn an audio sample into a histogram, which is a visual representation of that audio. They feed these histograms. They train a model based on these histograms to produce new histograms. And then they take these new generated histograms and turn them back into audio samples. That's how they trained this model to generate these new samples of these birds' songs. Something else that this can do is help preserve the ecosystems of these rare species. These rare species live in ecosystems that if you had humans invading them all the time trying to capture their songs, it could potentially damage that ecosystem. This allows scientists to generate new songs without having to go out into the ecosystems of these rare birds. What do you guys think about this?
I wonder, are any of the birds going to sue? Who owns the intellectual property of the bird song?
I believe animals cannot own copyright.
Maybe the band The Birds.
What about Twitter? Do they own any of it?
Not anymore.
They're X now. So does this mean like in the future I'll be able to just like hold my phone up and it'll tell me what bird is singing, sort of like it tells me what song's playing on the radio? Oh, okay.
Yes, exactly.
And
that's the goal of this project.
Just real quick, it shouldn't surprise anybody that more common birds were like overrepresented in the sample, just because the samples are going to be more common because the birds are more common.
Yeah, but it does produce a problem where, something, the model that you produce, given a sample of a more rare bird, will tend to be incorrect and choose a...
Question is on this, which like I don't fully understand how the histogram thing works, but like you're not just training on like, I don't know, the frequencies of the sound, but the birds actually have a song. They have a certain pattern to their song, but it sounds like they're almost making new patterns, but I'm not sure. What are they adjusting to make these new samples for training samples?
For that, you'd probably have to ask them. I'd imagine it's, something akin to like how Stable Diffusion can create new examples of something it knows very well. Stable Diffusion, for example, knows things like a car very well. So it could create new examples of cars that don't even exist.
Right, except that rare birds, by definition, shouldn't it not have enough examples? Like it wouldn't really know the birds very well?
I'd assume that they have enough examples to train it well because in the article they said that it increased the accuracy of the ultimately trained model that classifies the birds by about 12%. So that's a non-insignificant amount.
No, that's actually pretty good. So I was just wondering if it was like that or something like, because this sounds more like AI, but I know like Google or Waymo, right, with their self-driving cars, if they they had these different scenarios that they trained the cars on. So they would have like one example was some like guy like dropping a cardboard box in the road in front of the car, and the car would have to figure out what to do. And so that's great. You can have like one scenario, right? Well, they went in and they were able to adjust it so that they would make new samples, but what they do is they adjust the timing of things. Like, is the car closer or further away? When does the guy like drop the actual box or something like that into the road? How far does it go into the road? There's like parameters of this sample, and then they can make like hundreds of, or maybe even thousands of samples from just this one initial sample. I was wondering if it was something like that where they're just adjusting it slightly to make new versions, which could be useful.
I'm not sure. The article didn't go into specifically. Yeah. So I'm sure the scientists that worked on this would be happy to talk to you about it if you wanted to send them an email. But,
yeah, maybe. It's linked in the show notes, right? So
yep. I have had the experience that if a scientist puts out a paper, pretty much guaranteed, if you email them a question about it, they will be more than happy to answer your question. Okay. Scientists love talking about their research.
That is true.
All right, what do you got next?
All right, my next story is, you guys remember a few months ago, all over the news was this room temperature superconductor.
I think we reported on it.
Yep. The paper actually came out in March of this year, but it was a few months ago that it was all over the news. And everyone was saying it's probably fake. Well, guess what? This is the third article retracted from physicist, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Ranga Dias of the University of Rochester. So that guy is not having a good time. 8 of the 11 authors of the original paper requested that the journal Nature retract this. Sorry, was it Nature? Whichever journal published that paper. They requested, 8 of the 11 original authors requested that they retract. This was after many months of fellow scientists being completely unable to reproduce the results that were given in this paper. So it is no surprise to me, and I'm sure everyone else, that no, in fact, this room temperature superconductor was not.
Yeah, I got nothing. I don't know anything about superconductors, but I do know a thing or two about people publishing papers and then those papers not being replicated. Do we know if the original author is going on all kinds of podcasts saying that the Nobel Prize has been taken away from them because their work is so revolutionary?
I'm going to assume no, but I don't actually know.
Referencing something from another one of the podcasts.
I might be referencing a pair of brothers from a different podcast, and the difference here is, of course, this person did publish their work in a journal and subjected it to peer review, whereas the other people, I don't know, did it on a napkin or something. So. Yeah.
So when we reported on it previously, I don't remember how long ago it was, the same exact, the room temperature superconductor, I believe we said that people were having trouble replicating it and they weren't sure if it was actual real results at the time. So it's good that we're circling back. My question is, at the time, they didn't know if they didn't think it was just completely fake, but that it was, they were having trouble replicating it, that they just weren't sure that what they were seeing, the results they were seeing were because of superconducting properties, if that makes sense. Okay. But does this mean that it definitely was fake? The researcher posted, the original researcher did in fact make everything up, or what?
No, I don't believe that it was intentionally malicious, but the study was of very poor quality. It came to conclusions that the data did not support.
Do you know, and this is probably like way outside of what you would know from having read the article, do you know if anything, I don't know if of value is the right way to talk about it, but was anything learned about the nature of superconductors through this, even though the core, the big claim was, unable to be reproduced?
If there was anyone gleaned from this, it wasn't covered in the article.
I think the one thing we did learn is you can't make a superconductor this way. Room temperature.
Yep.
Which
correct.
It's funny, but is actually a valid outcome for a lot of experiments.
Yeah, and something failing isn't just like the hypothesis not being borne out by the evidence doesn't mean that your experiment or that your paper failed. You could definitely learn things when the thing you thought was going to happen didn't happen.
Yeah, it's just like when your rocket explodes.
Yeah, exactly.
Or when you don't get the Nobel Prize. everybody, thanks for listening to How the Tech Are You. This is our weekly tech show at Echoplex Media. You can check out all of our other shows and all of our other stuff at echoplexmedia.com. And don't forget to click the support tab while you're there. I need your money.